Ho Jiang, are you listening to me? I stood there in a daze. My fiancé, Gu Nanqing, waved his hand in front of my face. What's wrong with you? Why are you spacing out? Huh? I was still somewhat bewildered. Are you feeling unwell? If you're not up to it, I can go into town to get the mail for you. The mail? I jolted in shock, as I took in the surroundings that were both strange and familiar, and the young, handsome face of Gu Nanqing. My eyes were filled with utter disbelief. I rushed to the water vat, and only when I saw my own reflection, a face 30 years younger, did I finally realize I had been reborn. I had been reborn, returned to the very day my university acceptance letter arrived. Ho Jiang, I'm fine, I'm not feeling unwell. I looked at the man I had loved my entire life, utterly unable to fathom how he could have done so many things behind my back. I took a moment to steady myself, forcing down the anger inside. I smiled at him and said, I've already cleared it with the team leader, I'll go get it myself. Big Neo is waiting for me at the crossroads, so I'd better get going. With that, I left a frowning Gu Nanqing behind and hurried off towards the village entrance. In my past life, it was also on this day that Gu Nanqing went to the post office to collect the parcel for me. When he returned, he was in low spirits and told me that neither of us had gotten into university, even though I failed the exam and was heartbroken. He and I were childhood sweethearts who grew up together. I never once doubted his word, so I never bothered to verify the truth. It wasn't until right before my death that I received an email from his lover, Bai Xiaolan. Inside were intimate photos of Gu Nanqing and Bai Xiaolan together, taken at different times. There was also a yellowed, aged university admission letter, dated 1977, the very year I took the college entrance exam. Shock, rage, humiliation, and resentment, a torrent of complex emotions overwhelmed me. My blood boiled with such fury that I was literally angered to death. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back in the year 1977. I ran the whole way and finally managed to catch up with Dinyo's donkey cart. After jolting along for over an hour, the donkey cart finally arrived in town. As I stepped out of the post office, clutching the fresh Tsinghua University acceptance letter in my hand, tears streamed down my face like rain. In my past life, I never made it to university. I stayed in the village and married Gu Nanqing, and before long, I was pregnant. My morning sickness was so severe during the pregnancy that I gave up any thought of retaking the college entrance exam. The following year, Gu Nanqing took the exam himself, got into Peking University, and from then on, we saw very little of each other. Then, Bai Xiaolan came into the picture. She was Gu Nanqing's university classmate, and after graduation, they ended up working at the same company. From then on, wherever Gu Nanqing went, she followed. They were always seen together, and to everyone else, they looked like the perfect couple. Meanwhile, I was stuck at home, not only caring for my bedridden mother-in-law but also raising our twin boy and girl. Under the relentless grind of daily toil, my skin lost its luster, and the light of hope slowly faded from my eyes. Every time Gu Nanqing appeared before me with the radiant Bai Xiaolan, I could see the contempt and disdain in the depths of his eyes. Gradually, he began to openly show his disdain for me, constantly mocking me as an uneducated housewife. Compared to his and Bai Xiaolan's impressive, polished resumes, my high school diploma was truly nothing to speak of. Not only did he look down on me for my lack of education, but our two children also made their disdain for me clear, both openly and in subtle ways. My son held up the invitation to his academic awards ceremony and said to me, "You don't need to come and make a scene, you're not educated enough. My dad and Auntie Bai can attend as my family." My daughter would always say, "Mom, what do you have to be upset about? It's your own fault for having the lowest education in the family." Over time, I grew less and less confident, gradually feeling inferior to everyone else. Later on, I developed a mental illness, and the very notion of academic credentials became an obsession that haunted me. But at that very moment, Bai Xiaolan sent me proof that Gu Nanqing had been cheating on me with her for years. Along with that old, faded letter of admission, I was filled with regret, remorse for having lived my entire life for others. I hated myself for being so blind, for loving the wrong person. Thank goodness, I've been given a second chance. Gu Nanqing hasn't received his university acceptance letter yet. I haven't married Gu Nanqing, and I certainly haven't given birth to those two ungrateful brats. It's not too late. Once home, I hid the admission letter somewhere Gu Nanqing would never find it. I flipped the calendar to the 25th, the day the educated youth were scheduled to return home. I drew a big circle around the date. Then, I circled the 1st of next month, the day Tsinghua University starts its semester. In just 10 days, Gunanching and I can finally leave this place. The only thing is, his destination is his hometown, while mine is Tsinghua University. Looking back at the house where Gunanching and I live now, it was built for him with funds from his parents when we were sent to the countryside in 1975, as they were worried he wouldn't have a decent place to live. The house has 2 bedrooms and a living room, with bedrooms on either side and the living room, the main hall, in the middle. All the furnishings in the rooms were arranged by my own hand. After all these years, I've long considered this place my home. It's just that I probably won't be coming back here again. As I was tidying up to start cooking, another educated youth from my cohort who was sent down to the countryside suddenly came running over. "Ho Jiqing, are you home?" I wiped my hands dry and opened the courtyard gate. "Ho Jiqing, you should go check on Gu Jiqing right away. He fell into the water trying to save Bai Xiaolan." Fell into the water, Bai Xiaolan, in my past life. When I went to the school to find Gunanching with my child in my arms, I saw Bai Xiaolan walking and laughing with him. That was the first time I ever laid eyes on her. In this life, did my rebirth cause a butterfly effect, leading to Bai Xiaolan's early appearance? By the time Jiqing and I rushed to the riverbank, Gunanching had already been pulled ashore, soaked to the bone. He was crouched on the ground, holding an equally drenched Bai Xiaolan in his arms. Bai Xiaolan was nestled in his embrace, weeping so pitifully it would move anyone's heart. Seeing me approach, Gunan abruptly released Bai Xiaolan and looked at me nervously. Seeing the two of them locked in an intimate embrace once more, for some reason, my heart remained completely unmoved. My gaze swept over the crowd of onlookers and settled on a man with dark, weathered skin. I had seen this man in my past life. He was Bai Xiaolan's husband. After Bai Xiaolan was admitted to university, she asked her husband for a divorce. Her husband refused, holding the fact that he had once saved her life over her head. The whole affair caused a huge scandal at the time, all over the capital. Their marriage dragged on for 2 years. It was only after Gunanching stepped in to mediate that they were finally able to divorce amicably. Watching the man glare furiously at Gunanching, and then seeing Gunanching look at me, all nervous and uneasy, I couldn't help but let out a soft, wry chuckle. It seems my rebirth cut short 2 ill-fated relationships ahead of schedule, and in their place, fostered one truly happy marriage. In her past life, Bai Xiaolan fell into the water and was rescued by a man. The two eventually got married. Later, after she got into university, she looked down on the man's status and asked him for a divorce. My rebirth changed things. In this life, Bai Xiaolan, who was supposed to be saved by that man, was instead rescued by Gunanching, who couldn't even swim. Judging by how intimate and familiar Gunanching and Bai Xiaolan are with each other, it seems they've known each other for far longer than I ever imagined. On the way home, Gunanching seemed to have something to say but hesitated. While I remained completely silent, after seeing Gunanching for who he truly is, any feelings I had for him were long since worn away by the trials of my past life. In this life, I don't care who he ends up with, as long as it's not me. Once home, I went straight into the kitchen. After all that fuss, I'm absolutely starving. I took out the food I'd bought from the state-run restaurant in town and heated it up. I had planned to eat it alone, but with only 10 days left before I leave this place, to avoid any trouble, I decided to let things be as they were. Of course, if Gunanching were any kind of man, and took the initiative to break up with me to be with Bai Xiaolan, I wouldn't necessarily object. At the dinner table, Gunanching, who had been holding his tongue, finally spoke up. When you went to the post office in town, did you receive an admission letter?" I put down my chopsticks and looked Gunanching straight in the eye. I desperately wanted to ask him that question. "Since you knew Bai Xiaolan all along, why did you hide my university acceptance letter back then?" But then I thought about it and laughed at my own foolishness. That was a lifetime ago. In this life, Gunanching lost his chance to hide my university acceptance letter today. No, I'm not afraid of Gunanching checking. He doesn't have my college entrance exam ID number. In an era without the internet, even if he used his connections to investigate, by the time he got any results, I would have already reported to Tsinghua University. The rest of the meal passed in silence. None of us mentioned Bai Xiaolan. I didn't see the point. As for Gunanching, he had a guilty conscience. On the way home from work the next day, I saw Bai Xiaolan and Gunanching walking side by side towards me from across the way. They were chatting and laughing, and Gunanching's eyes were full of mirth. How long has it been since I last saw him smile like that? I can't quite remember anymore. Gu Nanching didn't notice me approaching from the opposite direction until he had already reached the courtyard gate. Upon seeing me, he instinctively put some distance between himself and Bai Xiaolan. Bai Xiaolan saw this, and a flicker of disappointment passed through her eyes, a detail I caught perfectly as I was watching her. Bai Xiaolan was a very beautiful woman. She was tall and fair-skinned, dressed in a white shirt and black trousers. The grueling labor of the educated youth sent to the countryside left no mark on her. No wonder Gu Nanching got involved with her, both in his past life and this one. In his past life, the family responsibilities Gu Nanching abandoned were shouldered by me alone. I'm done carrying this burden. I wonder if Gu Nanching would ever let his precious Bai Xiaolan shoulder it instead. Oh, Xiaolan, her name is Ho Jiang. She's Xiaolan, just listen to that, how affectionate. After all these years we've known each other, even at the peak of our relationship, he still only ever called me by my full name. Seeing Gu Nanching looking nervous and hesitant, I smiled and extended my hand, taking the opportunity to introduce myself on his behalf. Hello, my name is Ho Jiang. I'm the girl next door to Comrade Gu Jiqing. Upon hearing my introduction, Gu Nanching visibly relaxed with a sigh of relief. Bai Xiaolan shook my hand with polite courtesy. Hello, I'm Bai Xiaolan. After saying hello, I smiled at the two of them and said, you two chat, I'll go start dinner. Gu Nanching watched me leave and took a half step to follow, but then, remembering Bai Xiaolan beside him, he stopped himself. Back home, I changed my clothes and headed to the kitchen to cook. Not long after, Gu Nanching walked in. He stood at the kitchen doorway, frowning, looking like he had something to say. Seeing that I kept my hands busy and showed no intention of asking him, he finally couldn't hold back and spoke up. Did you just say you were the girl next door to me? I had assumed he came to explain to me why Bai Xiaolan sought him out. I never expected him to be so good at turning the tables. Did my old habit from a past life, of being suppressed by him and always looking up to him, follow me here? I stopped what I was doing and stared directly at him without saying a word. Shouldn't the one with a guilty conscience be the one doing the explaining right now? My silence made it impossible for him to hide the guilt he felt. Don't get the wrong idea. Bai Xiaolan came to see me to thank me for saving her yesterday. His words trailed off abruptly, so he knew he couldn't swim either. I see. I was indifferent to his explanation. With that, I went back to what I was doing, perhaps out of a guilty conscience. Gu Nanching, a man who in his past life believed a gentleman should stay clear of the kitchen, actually offered to help me cook. I didn't refuse and just let him be. After the meal, I tore off a page from the calendar. There were only 8 days left before I would leave this place. I suddenly felt time was crawling by, so very slowly. Before going to bed, I started tidying up the things in the room. I unraveled the half-finished sweater I was knitting for Gu Nanching, wound the yarn back into a ball, and decided to knit a sweater for myself instead. Then, I took the half-soled shoe I was making for him and, without a second thought, cut it down to my own size. Looking at my shoe soles, worn down to a thin layer, I could only curse my own foolishness. The next day, Gu Nanching still hadn't returned by dinner time. In the past, if he couldn't make it back on time, he would always send word to me. As darkness fell and there was still no word from him, I locked the courtyard gate and decided to head to the information point to ask around. Even though I no longer have feelings for him in this life, his parents did take good care of me, a lonely orphan. After my own parents passed away, out of both personal sentiment and basic decency, I felt I ought to ask around. Having made up my mind, I went to the village's educated youth outpost and found the male youth who often worked alongside Gu Nanching. When he saw me, a flicker of pity appeared in his eyes. I think I've figured out who Gu Nanching is seeing. Has Gu Nanching gone to see Bai Xiaolan? The male educated youth was taken aback for a moment, then it dawned on him. The village is only so big. How could Gu Nanching's comings and goings with a very pretty female comrade possibly be kept a secret from me? The ridiculous part is, in my past life, I was actually kept completely in the dark. On the way back from the educated youth outpost, I passed by a small grove of trees. I faintly heard the sound of two people talking coming from within the woods. Brother Nanching, when are you going to leave that old hag and be with me? It was Bai Xiaolan's voice. I hid behind the tree, touching my face and then rubbing my rough hands. Have I really become a haggard old woman so soon? Then, Gu Nanching's voice, strained with suppressed emotion, rang out, Xiaolan, let me touch you, just let me touch you. This was followed by Bai Xiaolan's shy, soft moan. I made a move to leave, having absolutely no desire to eavesdrop on their intimate moment. Before I could get away, Bai Xiaolan's voice rang out again. Wait, you haven't answered me yet. I lowered my foot, which I had just raised to step away. I want to hear Gu Nanqing's answer too. My gut tells me this answer is connected to how he deceived me and hid my college acceptance letter in my past life. A moment later, Gu Nanqing's voice, slightly strained and hoarse, broke the silence. Xiaolan, Ho Jiang is good at housework and taking care of people, and my parents have always treated her well. After we go back, I'll hold a wedding banquet with her in the countryside, so she can stay and look after my parents. Once you get into university, I'll register our marriage with you. In the eyes of the law, you'll be my real wife in the future, so, will you give yourself to me? You're so mean. Hearing Gu Nanqing's reply, I felt as if struck by lightning. So that's how it is. That explains everything. Ever since my rebirth, I had always thought it was just Gu Nanqing's fragile male ego at play. I always thought he acted that way because he couldn't outscore me. To think, I never saw through someone I've known for 20 years. No, with my past life included. Over 70 years, I failed to see their true nature, so he's actually this despicable and vile. I returned home, suppressing the fury burning inside me. I remember in my past life, I had to do all the housework with 2 young children clinging to me. On top of that, I had to change the diapers for Gu Nanqing's elderly mother, who was bedridden and paralyzed. I got less sleep than a rooster and was up even earlier. There's no way Gu Nanqing could have been unaware of my hardship. If he truly cared for me, how could he possibly dump this massive mess on me, a woman on my own, while he's out there living it up? In the end, I was just a fool, still clinging to the childhood bond we once shared, bound by a sense of obligation for the kindness his parents showed me. Thankfully, it's not too late, there's still time. I dug out my letter of admission and held it to my chest. And only after a long while did I feel a sense of peace. The next day, someone from the town clinic came and temporarily assigned me there to help out. The days at the town clinic were so hectic that I was too busy to even think of Gu Nanqing. As I pushed open the gate to the small courtyard, dragging my exhausted body, I saw Gu Nanqing and Bai Xiaolan locked in an embrace. Without a word, I turned and closed the courtyard gate behind me. When I looked up again, I met their complicated gazes. Gu Nanqing strode forward, trying to take my hand. But I deftly avoided his touch. I slipped my hands into my pockets, and Gu Nanqing offered an awkward smile. Ho Jiang, you're back. The brigade leader told me you were seconded to the township clinic these past few days. How was it? Were you exhausted? Before I could answer, Bai Xiaolan stepped forward and grabbed my arm. Oh, Sister Ho Jiang, so you know medicine too. The township clinic even asked for your help. You're amazing. Not like me. I went for training at the county hospital last year, but I only learned the basics. I can only stay in the village and help folks with minor aches and sniffles. As she spoke, she lowered her head sadly. Gu Nanqing saw this and quickly tried to console her. Xiaolan, how can you say that? Last time I fell into the water, it was you who helped me. As he spoke, Gu Nanqing glanced at me with a guilty conscience. I didn't understand what he had to feel guilty about. After sneaking off into the woods together, what's with the act of innocence now? Exhausted after a long day, I had no energy left to watch the two of them put on their little performance. You two carry on, I'm a bit tired. With that, she pulled her hand free from Bai Xiaolan's grasp and went into the room. Not long after, a knock came at the door from outside, and then it was opened. My hands, busy tidying the room, stilled. I looked up to see Bai Xiaolan walking in with a smile. I rubbed my throbbing temples, having absolutely no desire to play along with her little act. Bai Xiaolan completely ignored my exhaustion. After entering, she closed the door behind her. She began rudely surveying my room. I leaned against the wall, my face a blank mask once more, and silently watched her rummage around. When she spotted the 2 hideously ugly clay figurines I kept on the windowsill, she picked them up to examine, with a startled "Oh no." The 2 clay figurines fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. I'm so sorry, Sister Ho Jiang, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, I really didn't mean to. I watched her performance with a straight face. Her acting was far worse than those actors on TV, always carrying a strong whiff of that fake, manipulative sweetness. Seeing that my expression remained unchanged and I wasn't upset as she had expected, Bai Xiaolan found the whole situation rather anticlimactic. Sister Ho Jiang, aren't you angry? Wasn't this your most precious thing? Was it really my most precious thing? I thought back carefully. These 2 clay figurines were made by Gu Nanqing right in front of me the year I turned 15, after my parents passed away unexpectedly. He made them to comfort me and make me smile. Gu Nanching said the prettier clay figure was me, and the uglier one was him. He placed the two clay figures side by side and said to me, "See, even though your parents are gone, I'm still here with you. From now on, I'll be your family." Thinking about how I'd so easily accepted a boy as my family, as my love, all because of two clay figures, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. What's so funny? Bai Xiaolan's defiant expression froze. "Oh, I wasn't laughing at you, don't take it the wrong way." Hearing that, she dropped the act completely, walked over to me, and leaned in close to my ear. "You were outside the woods that night, weren't you?" It wasn't a question, but a statement. It suddenly dawned on me that this little schemer actually has some tricks up her sleeve. At the very least, when it comes to sheer shamelessness, I'm no match for her. I feigned confusion and looked at her. "What's the matter?" Not satisfied with how cooperative I'm being. "It's true, isn't it?" People love seeing that look of shock, confusion, and complicated emotions on someone else's face. No wonder Bai Xiaolan keeps trying to provoke me. Over and over again, I was thoroughly pleased with the look on Bai Xiaolan's face. At that moment, the door suddenly swung open, and Gu Nanching walked in with a complicated expression. "What are you two doing?" Seeing Gu Nanching enter, Bai Xiaolan immediately stumbled backward, her face a picture of tearful grievance, as if she had suffered a great wrong. "Brother Nanching, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to break Sister Hojiang's clay doll. Please don't be angry with me. You and Sister Hojiang, okay." As she spoke, large teardrops began to fall. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought I was the one bullying her. Seeing the shattered clay figure on the ground, a flicker of nostalgia passed through Gu Nanching's eyes. "It's just an inanimate object. What's broken is broken." Xiaolan is a guest. Was it really necessary to make such a scene? "If you liked it so much, I'll just make you another one. After my rebirth." I wasn't angry when I saw Gu Nanching holding Bai Xiaolan by the river. I wasn't angry when I saw Gu Nanching and Bai Xiaolan sneaking into the grove. Now, even after being framed by Bai Xiaolan and wrongfully accused by Gu Nanching, I still feel no anger. Perhaps it's because I no longer love him, so none of it matters anymore. That night, after learning the truth, I wanted nothing more than to kill that wretched couple. But I couldn't, for I owed a debt of gratitude to Mr. and Mrs. Gu. Otherwise, after my parents passed away, life as a 15-year-old orphan girl on my own would have been unbearably difficult. I let out a soft, inward sigh. "I'm tired, would you please leave?" Seeing me calmly shooing him away, Gu Nanching felt like he had punched a pillow. All his force met with soft, yielding resistance, but he quickly let it go. In the past, whenever he was upset, I was always the first to seek him out and make peace. He was sure I would do the same this time. He cleared his throat softly and went on. "Xiaolan, she's been harassed in the village and wants to stay with us for a few days. Do you think you could let her stay in your room? Or you could move in with me instead?" Frowning, I stared at the man before me who now felt like a stranger, still unable to believe he could say such a thing. "You expect me to live under the same roof as his mistress? You want me to live with him, right in front of his mistress? Does he have any moral compass left at all?" I spoke coldly. "First, I have no intention of sharing a bed with a stranger. Second, while we are engaged, we are not yet married. I have no interest in, nor would I stoop to, such shameless premarital conduct. You. I looked at the two of them, their faces flushed with anger. I walked over, pulled the door open, and gestured for them to leave. At my words, Bai Xiaolan's tears, which seemed to cost her nothing, began falling in large drops once more. "Brother Nanching, please don't be angry with Sister Hojiang. It's my fault. I shouldn't have come to trouble you." Having been publicly contradicted and humiliated time and again, Gu Nanching's expression turned extremely sour. His face was livid as he pulled Bai Xiaolan out of the room. "Xiaolan, this isn't your fault. You were harassed. You're the victim here. It's the other person who's being unreasonable." He said this while shooting an angry glare in my direction. "You'll stay in my room tonight." Bai Xiaolan's eyes lit up at this. Her large, dewy eyes looked at Gu Nanching with hopeful expectation. "What about you, Brother Nanching?" I'll just make do with a bedroll on the living room floor for the night." As he finished speaking, he shot a sidelong glance in my direction. Watching the two of them put on that act any longer, I thought I might be sick. I reached out and slammed the door shut with a bang. Only Gu Nanching, left in stunned silence, and Bai Xiaolan, secretly smirking to herself, remained. Gu Nanching knew I cared for him most, that I'd rather suffer hardship myself than see him endure it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken on all the cooking just because he quoted that old saying about gentlemen staying out of the kitchen. And I certainly wouldn't have let him sleep on a makeshift bed in the living room. He seemed to think I should feel sorry for him and offer him my bed, taking the floor myself. My behavior today was so out of character that Gu Nanching couldn't make sense of it. Brother Nanching, what are you thinking about? Bai Xiaolan noticed Gu Nanching staring intently at my door with a grave expression. My heart skipped a beat, and I hurriedly pulled Gu Nanching into a tight embrace. Gu Nanching was deep in thought when a soft, fragrant warmth suddenly pressed against his chest, causing his tense expression to soften slightly. But remembering that I was still in the room and could come out at any moment, he immediately pushed Bai Xiaolan away and took a step back. Little did he know, Bai Xiaolan paid no heed and kept nuzzling into his arms. This thrilling and novel sensation instantly sent his blood racing. Suppressing his ragged breathing, he whispered into Bai Xiaolan's ear, "You little tease, you're tempting me. But not now." She's still in the room, inside the room. I, of course, had no idea what was happening in the living room. But even if I had known, I wouldn't have cared. I picked up the shattered clay doll from the floor and tossed it into the trash bag. Given a second chance at life, now that I've chosen my own path, those nauseating, fake friendships are no longer worth my time or energy. By the time I had stripped the bed of its days-old sheets and was about to wash them, the house was empty. I tore off the accumulated days from the wall calendar. 3 days left until my departure. That evening, I made myself a simple meal. After eating, I went to bed and finally got a good night's sleep after so many exhausting days. Early the next morning, as I pushed open my door, I happened to see Bai Xiaolan coming out of Gu Nanching's room. She was wearing a tank top and shorts, leaving large expanses of her fair skin on full display. Seeing me emerge, she gave me a smile. "Good morning, Sister Hojiang. Brother Nanching let me stay in his room last night. I hope you don't mind." I smiled back. "Of course not. If you put it that way, Brother Gu might get the wrong idea. Breakfast is served." For once, Gu Nanching emerged from the kitchen carrying the prepared meal. Seeing me come out, he hurriedly called me over to sit down and eat. In my past life, Gu Nanching never once set foot in the kitchen. I always thought he couldn't cook. Turns out he could, he just didn't want to cook for me. Because of my rebirth in this life, some things are ultimately different. Bai Xiaolan grabbed Gu Nanching's arm, pressing the softness of her chest against it. "Brother Nanching, you're so wonderful." Gu Nanching stole a glance at Bai Xiaolan, forgetting for a moment to look away. I saw right through their little act but couldn't be bothered to call them out. Instead, I just picked up my bowl and started eating the congee. Breakfast was quite a spread: a large pot of plain congee, 6 eggs, and a bowl of pickled vegetables. It seemed Gu Nanching had used up enough supplies to last the next 2 days. At the dinner table, Bai Xiaolan and Gu Nanching were exchanging flirtatious glances. Something brushed against my leg under the table several times, but I pretended not to notice. "Hojiang, last night I let Xiaolan stay in my room. I slept on a makeshift bed in the living room." Hearing his feeble attempt at an explanation, I simply gave a non-committal and continued eating from my bowl. Seeing my indifferent expression, Gu Nanching didn't press the matter further. Bai Xiaolan suddenly chimed in, "Sister Hojiang, Brother Nanching is going to accompany me to work today. Could you please ask for leave on his behalf?" Hearing this, I couldn't help but scoff inwardly, for Bai Xiaolan's sake. Gu Nanching was even willing to skip out on earning his own work points. Since we educated youths were about to return to the city, the commune only gave us a day's rations for a day's work. If Gu Nanching is willing to give up his own rations today to help Bai Xiaolan, that's his business. I can't be bothered. You've got the wrong person. Comrade Gu and I aren't in the same work team. If there's nothing else, I'll be on my way. I know exactly what Bai Xiaolan is up to. Gu Nanching and I were in one team responsible for the southern district, while another team handled the northern district. In the past, whenever Gu Nanching needed to take sudden leave, he would always ask a fellow educated youth from his team. Today, Bai Xiaolan asking me to request leave for Gu Nanching was nothing but a way to tell me that he would be helping her with her work today. In my past life, Bai Xiaolan constantly sent me photos and videos of her with Gu Nanching just to provoke me. I've seen enough of those dramas where a bunch of women fight over one man. Did she really think I wouldn't see through a green tea act of her caliber? I downed the rest of my porridge in 2 gulps, grabbed a boiled egg, and got ready for work. "Take your time, I'm heading to work." With that, I left. I didn't even bother to acknowledge the complicated look Gu Nanching gave me from behind. That evening, as expected, Gu Nanching came back with Bai Xiaolan. but I had already finished eating. I stared at the empty rice pot. Gunanching knocked on my bedroom door. "What is it?" I called out from inside the room. Gunanching wouldn't enter my room without my permission. Seeing that I hadn't opened the door, he stood outside and asked, "Ho-jiang, didn't you make dinner tonight?" So, this shameless pair really thought they could freeload off me. Fat chance of that happening. I feigned ignorance. "I've already eaten, if you two haven't. You're welcome to make something yourselves." During my stay at the town clinic, meals and accommodation were provided. The food Gunanching is eating was all saved up by me before. There isn't much food left in the kitchen now, only enough for Gunanching himself. That's why he set his sights on the rations I just received tonight. In the past, under my care, we never went hungry, even if the meals weren't great. Gunanching had never been so worried about food as he was now, seeing that I remained silent. His pride ultimately got the better of him, and he didn't continue knocking. I didn't concern myself with how they managed to get their dinner. I took out some paper and a pen and began writing a letter to Gu's father and mother. The marriage arrangement between me and Gunanching was proposed by his mother. It was only verbally agreed upon at the time, with my parents gone and long lost contact with other relatives. The decision about my own marriage was entirely up to me. Now that I no longer wish to marry Gunanching, I must make this clear to his parents. There are only 2 days left before I leave. By the time they received the letter, I would already be at Tsinghua University. Even if Gunanching found out by then, there would be nothing he could do about it. After finishing the letter, I checked once more and found my admission letter safely hidden away, which put my mind at ease. The next morning, I saw Gunanching walk in from outside, carrying a small basket of grain. Looks like he went off to figure things out on his own. After all, I'm the only one in this house with any food. I'll make breakfast. I took the winnowing basket from his hands and, without another word, went into the kitchen. By the time breakfast was ready, Bai Xiaolan finally emerged, unhurried, from Gunanching's room. She wore a single braid, tied with a handkerchief and draped over one shoulder. Her nails were freshly painted with oleander red polish. Her every move was captivating. Gunanching was utterly mesmerized. Seeing me enter the room with a meal, they quickly averted their gaze and took the food from my hands. As I ate, I thought about what to bring back on the journey home. Who should I sell the things I can't use to? Although my parents have passed away, they still left me a sum of money. This money was more than enough to cover my university tuition and living expenses. In my previous life, after marrying Gunanching, I gave him this money to support his studies. But what did he do? He spent most of my money on Bai Xiaolan. I argued and fought with him, but for the sake of our 2 children, I chose to endure it in silence. In the end, that's the fate I met. In this life, I'm only looking out for myself, and my money is for me alone. After breakfast, I headed to work. It was my last day on the job, no work tomorrow. After finishing work in the evening, Gunanching and Bai Xiaolan still hadn't returned. Even very late, I ignored them and started packing my own things. I didn't have much luggage. It didn't even fill one suitcase. Over the years, the little money I managed to save was mostly spent on Gunanching. I bought all his clothes, shoes, and socks for him. As for myself, I had very few items, and the ones I did have were patched and worn. I sorted out the bedding and priced it low to sell to Aunt Hohot. There are professionals who will come to collect the furniture in the house. I bought all the pots, pans, and dishes myself, since I can't take them with me, and it wouldn't be practical to. I'm planning to sell them. This house was built with Gunanching's parents' money, so naturally, it's up to Gunanching to decide what to do with it. I didn't plan on interfering with the things in Gunanching's room. I'll leave it for him to handle himself. Gunanching came back alone very late. He saw me packing things in the living room. He poured himself a bowl of water and sat on a stool, drinking it. I could feel a pair of eyes fixed on me, making my skin crawl. If you have something to say, just say it. Gunanching set the bowl on the table, pointed to the stool beside him, and told me to sit down and talk. I pulled the stool over and sat down opposite him. He watched my movements, then brought a hand to his mouth and gave a light cough. "Ho-jiang, I think you might have misunderstood something. You've seemed quite distant towards me lately." I looked calmly into his eyes and suddenly smiled. "But Bai Xiaolan told me you were hers." Gunanching's expression shifted abruptly at those words. He seized my hand, his gaze utterly sincere. "Ho-jiang, don't listen to Xiaolan's nonsense. She and I are just friends, nothing more. We're the ones who are engaged. I'm yours, always will be. Besides, we're leaving the day after tomorrow, and Bai Xiaolan has to stay here, How could I possibly be with her? I laughed scornfully inside, but my face remained a perfect mask of composure. I see, Gu Nanching thought I believed his explanation. I can't blame him for that. In the past, he never had to explain anything to me because I would always make excuses for him. Over time, he simply stopped offering explanations altogether. This time, he did explain. Seeing that I didn't press further, he naturally assumed I bought it. Gu Nanching rubbed his hands on his thighs, a subconscious gesture he made whenever he needed a favor from me. I didn't press him, just watched him quietly. He would speak when he was ready. Sure enough, he said, Ho Jiang, since we're about to leave, I want to leave this house to Bai Xiaolan. It's your house, you can do what you want with it. You don't need to tell me, I said flatly. Gu Nanching was left speechless. Then he continued, look, for a new home, you need to furnish it with things like furniture, pots, and pans. Since we can't take these with us, could we leave them for Xiaolan? I scoffed. So that's what he was after. He knows the house was built with his parents' money, so I have no say in the matter. Asking me is just a formality. But everything in this home was furnished by me, so naturally, my consent is required for how it's handled. Fine, she can keep them. I was planning to sell all this stuff anyway. I'll work out a price, and if she thinks it's fair, she can buy it all from me. Gu Nanching stared at me in shock. He hadn't expected me to say that. I used to let him have the final say on everything, no matter what he said, but I don't know when it started. I feel like I've changed, become calculating and mercenary. The thought crossed my mind, and the words just came out. What happened to you? I barely recognize you anymore. Do you really have to nickel and dime over such a small amount? I sighed, got up, went back to the room, and placed a handwritten bill in front of him. This is the total cost of everything I bought for the household, from pots and pans to furniture and bedding. I paid for it all myself. It comes to 245 yuan. I've already asked around the village. If I were to sell these things secondhand at a discount, I could probably get about 120 yuan for them. Since you two are just ordinary friends, I have no reason to give an ordinary friend a gift worth 120 yuan. That's not a small amount of money, don't you agree? Are you kidding? 120 yuan covered my entire 4 years of university tuition. How could I possibly give it to that homewrecker who stole my husband and child in a past life? Weren't you just ordinary friends? I threw his own words back at him to see how he'd respond, just as I expected. Gu Nanching's lips moved wordlessly, and in the end, he said nothing. I stood up to return to my room. Before leaving, I turned back to Gu Nanching and said, if Bai Xiaolan wants it, tell her to bring the money as soon as possible. There's a lot of stuff. If she doesn't want it, I'll sell it all first thing tomorrow morning. With that, I went back to my room, leaving Gu Nanching sitting there alone with his thoughts. Not long after, I heard the sound of the front door closing. Gu Nanching had left. I slept very well that night. Packing my things really brought home the fact that I'm leaving. The day after tomorrow, I can finally leave and head towards my bright, promising future. I don't know if Gu Nanching came back last night, or when he returned. First thing in the morning, as soon as I stepped out of my room, I saw Gu Nanching sitting in the living room with a stack of banknotes on the table. I've spoken to Bai Xiaolan, she's taking everything. Here's the 120 yuan you wanted. Gu Nanching slid the money across the table toward me. I didn't stand on ceremony. I picked up the banknotes from the table and counted them. The amount was exactly right, not a cent more or less. Gu Nanching watched me put the money into my bag, a hint of reluctance in his eyes. A sudden thought struck me. Did Bai Xiaolan really pay this money herself? Gu Nanching's parents sent him 20 yuan every month. He never gave me any of it. Nor did he ever spend a cent on me, so, Gu Nanching did have money of his own. But honestly, whether he paid for it or not doesn't matter. What matters is it wasn't my money. Since Bai Xiaolan wanted the stuff, there was no point in me tidying it up anymore. During my break, I went to a local villager's home and bought a dozen or so eggs and some griddle cakes for the road. Since I made some money today, I figured I'd get a bit extra to share with Gu Nanching. It's a small way to acknowledge all his help over the years. On my last night as an educated youth in Shaha village, I went to bed early, feeling the university admission letter, which I had wrapped in oiled paper and sewn into my underclothes, gave me a sense of peace. The thought of being able to leave by bus the next afternoon kept me awake with excitement until late. Early the next morning, I picked up my lightly packed bundle and left the room. I saw Gu Nanching hurrying back from outside. He had already packed his bags last night. When I saw his luggage, I almost laughed. It seems his love for Bai Xiaolan is genuine. He left behind almost everything he could, taking only the bare essentials. Stepping out of the courtyard gate, I saw Bai Xiaolan standing there, her eyes red-rimmed and a picture of utter misery. Carrying my luggage, I brushed past her and headed towards the village entrance. In the distance, I could see Aunt Hohot standing at the village entrance. Even though I sold most of my things to Bai Xiaolan, I wasn't about to let her off easy. Last night, I still set aside a good portion of the things to give to Aunt Hohot. Aunt Hohot has been a great help to me over these years in the countryside. She kept hinting, both directly and indirectly, that Gunancheng was no good for me. But I was so wrapped up in my feelings that I didn't take her warning seriously. When she saw me coming, she spat in the direction of the courtyard and cursed, calling her a seductress. I'm telling you, they're already at your doorstep, and you still don't see it. Aunt Hohot thought I was utterly hopeless. I put down the package in my hands and hugged Aunt Hohot tightly. Her scent was still so comforting, just like my mother's. My eyes welled up, and my voice trembled with emotion. Auntie, I've been acting foolish for so long, but I'm not that person anymore. I'll tell you a secret, I got into university. I'm planning to leave Gunan City to go study. Really? Aunt Hohot was so excited she nearly jumped out of her skin. I quickly grabbed her arm, afraid she'd let out a whoop and give the whole thing away. I won't be able to relax for a single moment until I'm officially registered at the university. You didn't tell Gunancheng, Auntie Hohot whispered to me. I gave a slight nod. Auntie Hohot patted my shoulder, her eyes welling up with a look of profound relief. Good, good, you, child, have given your Auntie Hohot 2 pieces of good news just before leaving. That's right, 2 pieces of good news. I got into university. I'm done with Gunancheng. To keep Gunancheng from getting suspicious, I booked the same train as him. I was the one who bought the train tickets, and I deliberately got seats in separate carriages. When Gunancheng received the tickets, he didn't say much, just reminded me to be careful. I'll take the train to Wu City first, then transfer to the capital, Jing City. By the time I arrive in Jing City, the letter I asked Aunt Hohot to mail should have just about reached Mr. and Mrs. Gu. After a day and a night on the train, I arrived in Wu City. I gathered my luggage and got off the train. During that long journey, Gunancheng came to check on me. Seeing I was fine, he left. I had intended to have a clear talk with Gunancheng, so we could part ways amicably. Realizing he had even schemed with our future marriage in mind, I saw no point in explaining anything further. On the way to transfer, I never once looked back. From now on, the road is long and the mountains are high. Let all that's past be scattered to the wind. The train to the capital city finally reached its destination after 2 days of rattling along, carrying my suitcase. I felt the college acceptance letter I had been protecting all the way safely tucked against my chest, and finally let out a sigh of relief. After completing the enrollment process, the school assigned me a dorm room. With the money I earned from selling scrap for Bai Xiaolan, I bought new bedding and some new clothes. The first day of school arrived quickly, and soon I was immersed in the demanding routine of academic life. In my past life, I was incredibly envious of Gunancheng and Bai Xiaolan, envying their university education and successful careers. I envied how much they knew. In this life, I can have that too. I treasure this lifetime's chance to learn. Apart from eating and sleeping, I spend most of my time studying. I studied medicine. In my past life, the 2 children I had with Gunancheng studied biology and medicine. Now, seeing the professional jargon and academic terms they once used to mock me, it's nothing special. It was already the next day by the time Gunancheng realized someone else was in my sleeper berth, unable to find me. He had no choice but to ask the train police for help. After checking the tickets, the police told him I had gotten off at Wuxi City, but they had no idea where I went after that. With no way to locate me, Gunancheng had to go home first. When he got home, he saw the letter I had sent to Mr. and Mrs. Gu, and to him. In the letter, I was upfront with Mr. and Mrs. Gu and told them all about Bai Xiaolan's situation. Mr. and Mrs. Gu gave Gunancheng a severe scolding, but there was little more they could say. When Gunancheng learned I had been accepted into university, he slumped to the floor in utter dejection. He was all set to berate me for abandoning my husband and child, but then he read my letter, which mentioned seeing him and Bai Xiaolan slip into the grove. Combined with my recent odd behavior, it all clicked for him. He realized I must have overheard his conversation with Bai Xiaolan. His urge to vent and curse at me just fizzled out. After 3 months of study at Tsinghua University, I finally called Gu's parents. Over the phone, Gunancheng's parents scolded him once again. but they were powerless to change anything. In the end, they just urged me to focus on my studies. Not long after, Gunanching started writing me letters, apologizing and saying he had lost his mind. He said he was filled with regret and hoped I could forgive him. I never wrote back. I don't believe in the remorse of someone rotten to the core. Time flew by. And just like that, 4 years had passed. I graduated successfully, and the state assigned me a job. During that period, I continued my studies while working. I've always felt that learning has no end. There's still so much I don't understand, so very much left to learn. I saw Gunanching again 7 years later. I had just gotten married not long before, and I brought my husband back to my hometown to see the places where I had once lived. As soon as we entered the courtyard, I saw Gunanching and Bai Xiaolan coming out from inside. Gunanching had matured a great deal, and he carried a world weariness he hadn't had before. Bai Xiaolan was as charming and alluring as ever, yet she couldn't quite hide the weariness in her eyes. Gunanching was taken aback when he saw me. He never expected that the plain Jane he once looked down on would change so much after going to university. All these years, while focusing on my studies, I never neglected taking care of myself. In my past life, I was called a frump for as long as I can remember. Even at the age of 20, I was still being called a haggard old woman by Bai Xiaolan and Gunanching. How could I possibly tolerate that? So, even though 7 years have passed, my looks have only improved since I was 20, and my husband is truly exceptional, a man of remarkable talent and natural grace. This made Bai Xiaolan, who was following Gunanching, flash a look of resentment in her eyes. I merely glanced at her indifferently, with the same contempt I'd held for her all those years ago. Over the years, I'd heard bits and pieces about how they were doing. The year after Gunanching returned to the city, he retook the college entrance exams. On the eve of the college entrance exams, Bai Xiaolan came looking for me. Not long after, her husband, that fellow, came looking for me too. It turned out that after Gunanching and I returned to our hometown, Bai Xiaolan, unable to bear the loneliness, got involved with that fellow. Not long after, they were caught by the villagers, and she was forced to marry him. In her previous life, the fellow supported Bai Xiaolan in taking the college entrance exams, and she successfully got into university. In this lifetime, because Bai Xiaolan had a past with Gunanching, her father stubbornly refused to let her take the college entrance exams. Left with no choice, Bai Xiaolan could only sneak out. Following the address Gunanching had given her earlier, she found him and moved into the Gu family home. Gunanching's parents had already learned about Bai Xiaolan from my letter. They also knew that Gunanching and Bai Xiaolan had slept together, so they had no choice but to urge the two to get married as soon as possible. Before the wedding could even take place, Bai Xiaolan's husband showed up. This sent Gu's mother into such a rage that she suffered a stroke on the spot. Several years earlier than in her previous life, when Gunanching tried to break up, Bai Xiaolan threatened to report him for promiscuity, forcing the Gu family to step in and pay a hefty sum to help her divorce her husband. After the divorce, Bai Xiaolan quickly married Gunanching. After the wedding, their home was in constant chaos, affected by the turmoil. Gunanching failed the college entrance exam for a second time. Gunanching blamed Bai Xiaolan entirely for his second failure on the college entrance exam. Without me, the dutiful housewife from his past life, managing the home front, the two of them were constantly at each other's throats. Even the head of the Women's Federation would cross the street to avoid him. After failing the college entrance exam for the second time, Gunanching gave up on retaking it. Freed from the constraints of being a highly educated intellectual, Gunanching's true nature was laid bare, and he became even worse. Behind Bai Xiaolan's back, he was fooling around with women all over town. Bai Xiaolan was clearly no pushover either. A woman like her, a real piece of work, was never going to settle down and play the dutiful wife to Gunanching. And she certainly wasn't about to roll up her sleeves and take care of his mother's most unpleasant needs. If Gunanching was playing the field outside, she was doing the exact same thing. His wild ways were matched by her own. Every time Gunanching brought up divorce, she would go and make a scene at his factory. The couple couldn't stand the sight of each other, yet they had no choice but to make do. In this lifetime, my husband and I had 2 children together, a son and a daughter. Our son and daughter are both filial and kind-hearted. They never look down on people with less education than themselves. They've done exceptionally well in their respective careers. Every time they receive an award and give a speech, they never fail to thank me and their father for raising and educating them. That truly warms my heart. I have no regrets about having them, even in the face of the old fear of raising ungrateful children. My life has been happy and fulfilling since I left that good-for-nothing man. The end. Story 2. When I was 16, my mother committed suicide by jumping into the sea, and it was Reed Fu who accompanied me to claim her body. When I caused a scene in my father's office while holding her ashes, it was also Reed Fu who stood behind me as my support. When my father raised his large hand, Reed Fu rushed forward in a flash to shield me. When my father pressed me with questions, I can take care of her for a lifetime, can you? 16-year-old Reed Fu raised his head high and bowed confidently. I can. But at 26, Reed Fu fell in love with someone else. He turned a blind eye to my tears. To be with that girl, he was willing to call off our engagement, even though I had just had a miscarriage. Sky Yi, we won't be happy if we get married. You still have your whole life ahead of you. Don't waste it on me. But I refused to let him have his way. Reed Fu's mother is ill. As the daughter-in-law, I should go fulfill my filial duties, but someone beat me to it. Premium mink fur, the latest lambskin boots, the sandalwood incense curled upward as Reed Fu's young lover sat by the window, amusing the old lady with laughter. Wealth truly nurtures. The once frail little girl had now become plump and radiant, like a piece of exquisite mutton-fat jade, pinching my fingertips. I called out softly, "Mom." The old lady's smile vanished instantly. Her chest tightening as she struggled for breath, she waved her hand, and Suri Jiang tactfully withdrew. Before leaving, she didn't forget to show concern for the old lady. "Mom, Reed and I will come to see you tonight." "Oh, this is a declaration of sovereignty." The old lady half covered her face and waved her hand. Suri Jiang gave me a harmless smile, as if she had just noticed my existence. In the past, I would have been furious. At the very least, I would have torn off that hypocritical mask of hers and stomped on it. But all these years, for the sake of securing the position of Mrs. Shen, and to prevent that pair of lovebirds, Suri Jiang and Reed Fu, from having their way, those who should be fought and those who shouldn't, have all been fought. I'm utterly exhausted. I sat down casually in front of the old lady. "Mom, I heard your old ailment is acting up again." Only then did the old lady open her eyes again, smiling faintly. "Sky. Thank you for your concern. These days, I haven't been sleeping well. Perhaps the Bodhisattva is calling me home." After marrying Reed Fu, the old lady turned to Buddhism, offering daily sacrifices to the Bodhisattva to atone for her son's sins. "Reed is a scoundrel. Sky, please forgive him this once." Old Mrs. Shen forced the battered and bruised Reed Fu to kneel before me. Back then, Reed Fu had fallen hopelessly in love with Suri Jiang, the girl I was supporting. I simply couldn't bear to hand over everything I had built to someone else. They used the child to trap Reed Fu. Upon hearing this, Suri Jiang came to my door in the heavy rain, kneeling and begging me to spare Jiang Reed. She kept kneeling until I agreed. The rain pounded relentlessly, Suri Jiang's dark, bright eyes unwavering like a resilient flower. "This cannot move my heart." Battered by wind and rain, in the struggle, Reed Fu, trying to protect Suri Jiang, accidentally pushed me to the ground. The blood flowing from beneath me meandered in the rain. Reed Fu panicked, hastily picking me up, his entire body trembling. "Sky, it'll be okay. It will definitely be okay. I'm fine. The baby is gone." Reed Fu stayed by my side. "It seems everything is back on track. However, love can traverse mountains and seas, and Reed Fu and Suri Jiang have become entangled once again. Sky, Mom wants to meet her dear grandson before going to the Bodhisattva. This way, after Mom is gone, you'll have someone to rely on. You won't feel lonely when you're alone." Mrs. Shen is a traditional, virtuous woman who loves her husband and son dearly. She knew that Reed Fu and I had weathered many storms together for years, and even when I later physically confronted Reed Fu, she never intervened. That's why I'm willing to call her Mom. This is actually the first time she's made a request of me. I silently withdrew my hand. "Mom, what nonsense are you talking about? You will live a long life." Mrs. Shen looked at me for a long time and finally let out a helpless sigh. "Sky, sometimes it's better to be a little foolish in life." I lowered my head and didn't speak. My mother had said the same thing to me when my father took his mistress to Los Angeles to see the moon. I looked up and asked her, "Why didn't you expose Dad?" "He wasn't on a business trip at all. He was off enjoying himself." My mother gently brushed her crimson fingertips. "Why expose it? Isn't life good now? There's food to eat, clothes to wear, and when you're sad, you can tear money for fun." Holding young me in her arms, she said, "Sky, don't live too clear-headed, otherwise, it would be a very painful existence." Unfortunately, A person like her still ended up trapped by love and committed suicide by jumping into the sea. I insist on staying sober, soberly remembering Reed Fu's betrayal. Remember this bone-deep hatred, so you won't be driven mad by resentment in the dead of night. When I came out, Suri Jiang was still there. She greeted me with a faint smile. Long time no see, Sky. 3 years ago, she stood before me in faded clothes, her eyes brimming with joy. Sky, I've finally met you. Tears welled up in the corners of her eyes, as if from excitement or perhaps relief at having finally escaped her muddy fate. Still those same bright, shining eyes. Sister Sky, thank you for sponsoring me so I could leave the mountains. I will work hard and repay you in the future. She was so young back then, with a determined look between her brows. It reminded me of my own refusal to accept fate, my belief that I could protect Reed Fu. Little did I know, I wasn't the only one who thought this way. I treat Suri Jiang like a younger sister, bringing her into the project team, guiding her through negotiations, teaching her the ways of the world, hoping she would have a bright future. Reed Fu had an affair with her behind my back, leading her to bed. How ironic, when I caught them in the act. She bit her lip, her eyes brimming with tears. Sis, I'm sorry, but Reed and I are truly in love. Please, give us your blessing. I don't know if all the other mistresses say this when they're caught, but at that moment, my stomach churned violently. I rushed to the bathroom and vomited until everything went black. Disgusting, truly disgusting, just as disgusting as when I worked my fingers to the bone to earn money for Reed Fu's treatment, and a customer groped me. What did I do then? I smashed a bottle over that person's head, leaving him bleeding profusely. So, after I came out of the bathroom, I slapped Suri Jiang hard, making her lips bleed. Ungrateful wretch. One slap, severing her guilt toward me. She deserved it. I lazily looked up. Suri Jiang, it seems we don't have that kind of relationship. She smiled gently, placing her hand lightly on her stomach. Sky, I know you hate me, but I'm about to become a mother too, and I genuinely came to make peace with you. After all, it's unfair to involve children in adult matters. Her face was full of happiness, like the summer sun stinging my eyes. She said gently, Reed feels the same way. Only then did I turn my gaze to her belly. It's so flat there, yet they actually had a child. They actually had a child. How dare they live so guilt-free after killing my child? I walked straight over, gently cupping my hands. So small. Will I survive? Sky Yi. The person before her was pulled into a solid embrace, in the depths of winter with heavy snow. The scent of wind and snow on Reed Fu was as cold as his gaze. After my miscarriage, Reed Fu's mother enforced family discipline, beating him until he was covered in wounds. When she forced Reed Fu to kneel by my hospital bed and promised to settle down and marry me, the look in his eyes was just as chilling as it is today. He resents me for tying him down, for becoming his shackles, yet he forgets how he once stubbornly circled around me, begging for just a chance to get closer. Sky Yi, we won't be happy if we get married. He peeled an apple for me by the hospital bed. The red peel coiled in circles, reminding me again of the winding blood on that rainy night. Summoning my last strength, I forced a weak smile and looked at him mockingly. Reed Fu, do you really think I married you to make you happy? Do you really think you're worthy? Reed Fu paused, the fruit knife in his hand, then said solemnly, Sky Yi, there's no need to punish yourself for my sake. You still have a bright future ahead of you. It's unclear whether he felt any guilt when saying these words, or if heartless people simply have no heart at all. I was just a young, innocent girl when I started following him. Years later, after suffering a miscarriage because of him, he tells me I have a bright future ahead. As for punishment, from the day he betrayed me, I was already doomed beyond redemption. I touch my once again flat stomach, lowering my eyelids. Reed Fu, you overestimate yourself. What I want is money, power, and status. What I want is the rightful title of Mrs. Shin. Years ago, in a shabby migrant worker's room, I cried, begging only for Reed Fu to survive. I begged him to hold on a little longer for my sake, not to give up his life. Reed Fu, I beg you, please stay alive. I even threatened with my own life. If you jump, I'll follow you in death. Whether alive or dead, we'll be together, in this lifetime. Don't even think about leaving me behind. At that time, he was plagued by illness, often suffering through sleepless nights and deep pain. I knew he would stay for me. He couldn't bear to see me cry. Even in extreme pain, he only let out faint, restrained gasps. Such a person, holding me and sobbing uncontrollably. Sky, I'll be the death of you. He felt guilty for my working day and night to earn money for his treatment, but I could only sigh in gratitude to the heavens for taking pity on me, bringing Reed Fu back to my side. I do it willingly. I clung to him tightly, as if I had narrowly escaped death, unwilling to let go even a little. Now, I stand in sharp opposition to him. As long as he suffers, to make him suffer the same unfulfilled desires as I do, I want him to be as powerless and heartbroken as I am. Shin's mother swore to me with absolute certainty that she would make Reed Fu marry me, otherwise, she would atone for Reed Fu by taking her own life. So, what does Reed Fu have to fight me with? What does Suri Jiang have to fight me with? Worthless tears, money and power. I can divide them fairly with you, even giving you an extra 10%. Shin Xingye made a desperate attempt. I shook my head with a sneer. Reed Fu, don't you want your mother to live? After that day, Reed Fu settled down and stayed by my side. He treated me with utmost care and tenderness, as if we had returned to our late teens. We were inseparable, living in that innocent time when our eyes saw only each other. It was as if someone like Suri Jiang had never come between us. There is no betrayal or hatred between us. All those ugly past events are sealed beneath the gorgeous wedding dress, but only I know, there isn't. Before the wedding officially began, Reed Fu found me. Sky Yi, it's not too late to back out now. How ridiculous, why would I ever regret this? After today, I will be the wife of the Fu Group's CEO. I will share all his assets with him, and from then on, every second of rising stock prices will include my half. As for Suri Jiang, no matter how much Reed Fu loves her, she will only ever be a mistress hidden in the shadows. I couldn't be happier. I took Reed Fu's hand and said coldly, Reed Fu, we're going to hell together. For my poor unborn child. Reed Fu's tall frame trembled slightly, and after a few dozen seconds, he intertwined his fingers with mine. Okay. As the church bells chimed, the priest offered a heartfelt prayer. Reed Fu and I shared a fleeting, butterfly-like kiss. The wedding of 26-year-old Sky Yi wasn't as sweet as 18-year-old Sky Yi had imagined. She viciously cursed. Reed Fu, you'd better die soon. 26-year-old Reed Fu smiled as he watched 28-year-old Sky Yi freeze for a moment, then said, alright, Sky Yi, I'll definitely die before you. I looked up steadily, puzzled at Reed Fu, and asked, did I say something wrong? Have you forgotten how our child died? Time is a wonderful thing. It teaches people to forget, to make oneself forget the evil one has committed. But how could I let him have his way? I whispered, Reed Fu, have you forgotten, that rainy night, the blood that flowed beneath me has long since turned into a crimson serpent's tongue, coiling around my heart day and night. I remember. How could he forget? Reed Fu was instantly stung. Reed Fu averted his eyes, no longer possessing the sharpness of before, his tone strained. Sky. That was an accident. It was my fault. You can hit me or scold me. I'll accept it all. I just beg you not to drown in the past and punish yourself anymore. Ha, his words about not dwelling on the past sound so effortlessly light, but does he know what it's like to be haunted by nightmares day and night, to hear the sound of crying in dreams, to be chased by a child asking, Mommy, why don't you want me? No, he wouldn't. While I was tormented, pacing back and forth in an empty room all night long, he was embracing warmth and tenderness in his arms. When I cried, my eyes swollen, holding the tiny urn in repentance, he was busy coaxing his little lover. While I coughed up blood and wept tears, his spring was warm and bright. Looking at his furrowed brows, I softly laughed. Reed Fu, I don't want beatings or scoldings. I want you to give up this child. What would you choose, Reed Fu? To use this unborn child to atone for your sins? Or to stab me in the heart once again? Reed Fu lowered his eyes, as if deep in thought. It seems their love isn't that unshakable after all. Suri Jiang nervously clutched Reed Fu's sleeve, her eyes brimming with tears. Reed, this is our child. He's so little. Don't give up on him. Sky. Reed Fu chose Suri Jiang once again. Humph. A hint of mockery lingered in the air as I stared straight at Reed Fu. Reed Fu, wanting everything and still pretending to be some kind of savior. Who do you think you are? The usually timid Suri Jiang suddenly stepped in front of Reed Fu, defending him. Sky, your words are so malicious. Reed means well. We just want you to be happy. Want me to be happy? What kind of sick joke is this? I turned my face and glared at her fiercely, like a demon in the night. Wasn't my happiness destroyed by the two of them together? How dare she say such words to me? She took 2 steps back in fright, but I refused to let her off. Suri Jiang, you know me. If I'm suffering, no one else gets to be happy. Suri Jiang instantly recoiled like a startled young animal, hiding in Reed Fu's chest. Sky, I apologize for any wrongs I've done to you in the past. I only beg you, don't harm my child. Her words sounded so innocent. Ironically, Reed Fu was blinded by love. He held Suri Jiang tightly and said sharply, "Sky Yi, that's enough." Then he softened his tone to comfort the little lover in his arms, "Ching ching. I promise the baby will be born safely." I curled my lips into a sarcastic smile. Reed Fu once promised me that he would love only me for the rest of his life, but what happened in the end? He abandoned me without hesitation. I glared at the cheating couple before me, wishing I could skin them alive and devour their flesh. Finally, I just said lightly yet with full malice, "Fine, once it's born it can just be a little bastard." Suri Jiang's face was swollen from crying like a walnut. I couldn't be bothered to watch their nauseatingly sweet drama, so I tossed 2 bills at her face for her to wipe her tears. Considerate payment for the effort she put into performing this grand act in front of me. Reed Fu grabbed my wrist. "Sky Yi, you're going too far." I slapped him backhanded. "So what? Are you going to kill me to vent her anger?" Reed Fu. A complex mix of emotions surged in Reed Fu's eyes, where beneath the hatred, there seemed to be a trace of pity. Before I could get a clear look, Suri Jiang fluttered over like a butterfly, clutching Reed Fu's hand. "Reed, I believe Sister Sky didn't mean it. She just hasn't moved on yet." A cherry-like mouth, yet each word spoken cuts deeper than the last. How utterly fake. I'd be willing to stay a second longer, then turn and leave. Reed Fu, how could your taste be so poor? After returning from the Shen residence, I received a message from old Mrs. Shen. "Sky, you're a good child. Think carefully about what I told you today. I'm old now and can't interfere in matters between you and Reed. Life is short. You should have someone to rely on." Followed by a multimedia message from an unknown number, a photo of Suri Jiang and Grandma Shen sitting together at the same table, sharing a meal. I lowered my head and smirked. Suri Jiang's little performance today was nothing more than an attempt to make me feel miserable, and Grandma Shen, by her silence, had tacitly acknowledged the existence of this child. It's not hard to imagine this outcome. She had long reached the age of enjoying the pleasures of grandchildren. Moreover, no matter how despicable Reed Fu might be, he was still her son. She would always stand on Reed Fu's side. I lightly tapped delete, closed my phone, and poured myself a glass of champagne. Ever since catching Reed Fu cheating, I've been frequently suffering from insomnia. Later, after the miscarriage, it became so severe that I couldn't sleep at all for entire nights. Even with medication, I was often startled awake by nightmares. Later, I simply stopped taking medication and turned to alcohol, numbing my nerves with false happiness, following my body's memory. I walked barefoot to the children's room on the second floor. In the cozy cradle lay a small piece of bone china. Silent and still, inside it rested my poor unborn child. Reed Fu thought the child was just a tool I used to tie him down. Little did he know, this was the child I had been eagerly anticipating with joy. The night before I caught him betraying me, I had been full of excitement, wanting to tell him we were going to have a baby. I just wonder if he'll get his wish of having a daughter. When he was young, Reed Fu once said that he must have a daughter just like me in the future and give her all the love in the world. It would be like raising me all over again. Holding Reed Fu, I secretly vowed that I would make sure our future child is the happiest in the world. I would give her all the love I missed out on in my childhood. Back then, I naively believed that Reed Fu and I were so deeply in love. How could we possibly fail to provide her with a family full of security and love? Yet the harsh reality was, we couldn't. I gently rocked the cradle, humming an off-key version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, how I wonder what you are, up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. I sang this childhood lullaby word by word, the same one my mother used to sing to me when I was little, the only lullaby I've ever known. I hope that if there truly are divine beings, my prematurely departed child can find peace. Tears poured down like scattered pearls from a broken string. Through my blurred vision, it seemed as though a tiny, soft hand really reached out from the little cradle. Trembling, I tried to grasp it, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach it. "Mommy, why don't you want me?" a tiny, soft voice asked me pitifully. Am I not being good, or did I do something wrong to make Mommy angry? No, it's not that. It's because I failed to protect you. I opened my mouth wide, trying to make a sound. The tiny figure began to retreat. "Mommy, why don't you want me? It hurts so much, so much." She curled up into a ball, covering herself. "Don't cut my hands, don't cut my feet, it hurts. Mommy, save me." No, no. I crawled forward desperately, trying to hold her. "Mommy was wrong. Mommy didn't abandon you." But she wouldn't listen to me. Running farther and farther away, I chased after her recklessly, only to be held back forcefully by someone. Sky, wake up. Someone kept patting my face. Sky, there is no child here. I turned around and saw Reed Fu, his expression anxious, my eyes empty. Reed Fu, our child blames me. She says she's in so much pain. Sky, what did you say? I looked at Reed Fu, tears falling one by one. She said, she's in pain. She said she's in pain. My child said she's in pain. My heart aches with unbearable pain, the taste of something metallic and sweet rising in my throat. Reed Fu trembles as he tries to cover my mouth, blood gushing uncontrollably. Sky, it's all fake, don't believe it. He holds me tight, repeating over and over. Sky, it'll be okay, it'll be okay. How could it possibly be okay? How could that be? That rainy night, I clearly saw my blood continuously flowing out, as I was being wheeled into the operating room, amidst the cold clinking sounds of surgical instruments. I witnessed with my own eyes my child turning into a mass of flesh and blood, leaving me forever. So much pain, such agony. So, how could everything be fine? Gazing at Reed Fu's chiseled profile, I murmured, Reed Fu, I'm in so much pain, it really hurts. It feels like my heart has shattered into thousands of pieces. My hands are bleeding from trying to gather them, yet I can never seem to put them back together. After intense resuscitation efforts, I was transferred to the ICU. The doctor told Reed Fu that years of pent-up emotions had caused my illness, and my heart was blocked by stagnant blood, coupled with years of overwork. I also had many hidden ailments, and there was a 90% chance I would what? Short-lived. Reed Fu stood incredulously in the shadows. Could the diagnosis be wrong? The doctor looked up in surprise. Don't you know, she's been ill for a long time. Patients with depression are prone to early death if not properly cared for. Reed Fu murmured, but she was always fine, yes, all these years, I had always been strong and unshakable in front of Reed Fu. After discovering his infidelity, I went berserk, hitting and scratching him, throwing everything within reach at him. Because of this, he worked from home for half a month. Later, I seized the opportunity to quickly consolidate resources, using both shares and the child in my womb to pressure him into marriage. Even when I was lying in the hospital bed after a miscarriage, I didn't shed a single tear in front of him. I was sharp, stubborn, anything but fragile. How could I possibly fall? The doctor frowned and sighed, like a tree gnawed by ants. It appears flourishing on the surface, but inside, it's already hollowed out. He patted Reed Fu on the shoulder. Take more care of your patients. A good family is also a potent remedy. Reed Fu slumped down in front of me, suddenly. He remembered how 8 years ago, after failing to secure funding and being plagued by severe illness, he had completely collapsed in the hospital. It was also a harsh winter, with snowflakes as large as goose feathers. I had heard from somewhere that a peace charm obtained by kneeling step by step could ward off disasters and misfortunes. I knelt for 3,000 steps to get it for him. Back then, I would warm my hands with my breath first, then carefully tie the peace charm around his neck. Sincerely wishing, Reed Fu, you must stay safe. Reed Fu didn't say a word, silently pulling me into his embrace to warm me up. The snowstorm was so fierce that my face froze like an apple after autumn frost, chapped, red, and all wrinkled, yet my vitality was stubbornly tenacious, like wild grass that springs back with the wind, and I didn't fall ill at all. That evening, I even went to wash dishes at the restaurant. Life was truly so hard for us back then, being chased by debt collectors. Stacks of medical bills that never seem to end no matter how much I pay. My hair falls out in clumps from anxiety, every day spinning like a screw, constantly thinking about how to earn more money. Back then, no matter how hard it was, I never got sick. Why is it now that I'm about to collapse? Reed Fu tightly grasped my hand, his voice choked with sobs. Sky, how could you die so young? Sky, I seem to have returned to the past. It feels like I've gone back to when I was 18. I stared blankly at Reed Fu, who was waiting for me under the big banyan tree with his bag slung diagonally across his back, for what felt like an eternity, so long that the 18-year-old Reed Fu couldn't wait any longer and anxiously walked over to me. Sky, please don't be mad at me anymore. I was wrong. At that time, Reed Fu and I were deeply in love, but we were both young, and neither was willing to back down. Reed Fu suddenly moved closer to me, his beautiful eyes locking onto mine. Please, won't you forgive me? Reed Fu's ears quickly turned red as he pressed close to me affectionately. Please, Sky. His call left me flustered. It had been far too long since I'd seen this side of Reed Fu. Before I could react, a car sped past, Reed Fu shielded me tightly behind him. Someone in the car whistled maliciously. Sky Yi, you jinx. I heard your mom jumped into the sea and died. I froze in place instantly. Even after enduring so much betrayal, my mother's suicide by jumping into the sea remains my hidden pain. In the quiet of midnight, I often wonder, if I had realized sooner, would my mother still be alive? Reed Fu, like an enraged little lion, yanked the man out of the car. Apologize. Fuming, he pressed the man's head down, but the man just smirked. Was I wrong? She, Sky Yi, is nothing but a jinx. Reed Fu bang struck down, and the other person didn't back down either. The two of them tangled together. I snapped back to reality, picked up the school bag from the ground, and swung it hard at the person, again and again. For a moment, the world fell silent. Reed Fu nervously waved his 5 fingers in front of me, looking unsettled. Sky Yi, after venting my anger, I threw my bag aside and said to the stunned Reed Fu, aren't you leaving yet? The sun gradually sank in the west, and Reed Fu's shadow became tightly entwined with mine. He tentatively whispered. Sky Yi, are you okay? I whispered softly. He mustered his courage and moved closer to me, carefully taking my hand. Sky Yi, don't listen to what that person said. This has nothing to do with you. A gentle breeze lifted, and I raised my eyes to ask, Reed Fu, will you always stand by my side? Of course I will. His eyes were filled with tenderness. Silly, where else would I stand if not by your side? Liar. After I married Reed Fu, Suri Jiang didn't give up easily. When Reed Fu blocked her phone number, she registered a new one. When Shen Xingye avoided her, she waited for him downstairs at his company. Reed Fu has many ways to never see her again, yet Suri Jiang might appear in our lives, like a shadow that can't be shaken off. All of this is because of Reed Fu's silent consent, because he also wants to see Suri Jiang. The more you suppress, the more it surges. Finally, at the doorstep of our marital home, after Suri Jiang fainted from prolonged waiting, Reed Fu could no longer hold back. Without a second thought, he rushed downstairs, fearing he might be a second too late, completely oblivious to my finger, which had just been sliced open and was bleeding profusely. I stopped him from personally taking Suri Jiang to the hospital, and he looked at me coldly. Sky Yi, you don't know how to love someone at all. That's why you're so indifferent. His words pierced my heart like a poisoned sword. The pain was so intense I could barely breathe. He left me with only his back. I gently tugged at the corner of my mouth. What if you can't? What if you say I'm very bad? How could that be? He denied without hesitation, seeing my tears welling up. He was at a loss and said in disbelief, Sky Yi, did I end up hurting you later on? Suddenly, tears streamed down his face, as if he couldn't accept it yet seemed resolute. Then when that time comes, you must not soften your heart and forgive me, make me lose all my wealth. Leave me in utter destitution, make me never see you again. I woke up in a cold sweat. It was just a dream. I gently withdrew my hand from Reed Fu's palm. As I stood up, I heard Reed Fu call out to me, Sky Yi. His voice was thick with a nasal tone, as if he had been crying hard. But why would he cry for me? I smiled self-deprecatingly and left the ward after making sure he hadn't woken up. I happened to run into Suri Jiang, who had rushed over upon hearing the news. The wind and snow were heavy, her hair damp with moisture. After peering into the ward at the still sleeping Reed Fu, she knelt before me. Sister Sky, in the past, it was Reed and I who wronged you, but I really can't lose Reed. She looked at me with sorrow and despair. The child in my womb needs a father. If your child were still here, you would understand me, wouldn't you, my child? The thought of that tiny figure saying she was in so much pain makes me unable to hold back my tears. I bent down, gripping Suri Jiang's chin. Suri Jiang, how dare you? Repeatedly challenging my limits. Her crimson lips trembled slightly. Sky, I'm sorry, but I also have things I need to protect. Ugly, so ugly. This face is so different from the one I first saw. In my dazed state, Suri Jiang leaned back against my hand, followed by a pained moan. When Reed Fu came out upon hearing the commotion, he saw Suri Jiang's face as pale as paper, clutching her stomach as she collapsed to the ground. Her delicate hand gripped Reed Fu's, the pain and vulnerability in her eyes nearly overflowing. Reed, save our child. The scene was just like that night, as Reed Fu held Suri Jiang tightly and carried her out. As he passed by, he glanced at me out of the corner of his eye. All that remained for me was his retreating figure. We walked past each other, and I returned to my room. The doctor on rounds happened to arrive and advised me, drink less, it's too harmful to your health. I gave him a bitter smile. Can't sleep, the medicine doesn't work. He sighed softly. You should let go of what needs to be let go. The living are more important. I lowered my head and whispered, will my child find peace? The doctor replied, yes. I looked up, my face streaked with tears, but she told me she was in pain. Compared to that, she would probably want you to let go more. The doctor looked at me. Miss Skye, you need to learn to forgive yourself. When Reed Fu came back to find me, I was sitting on the edge of the wide-open bed. The wind blows, and I can float away. It's just like the day when Reed Fu, gravely ill, wanted to end it all. Skye, Reed Fu's voice trembled with tension. I turned to look at him, and he seemed to see hope. His lips parted and closed several times, yet I couldn't hear clearly. I raised my hand, Reed Fu's heart pounding with anxiety. Skye, don't. I looked at him with amusement, then jumped down from the windowsill. You think I'd commit suicide? I raised an eyebrow. Relax, I'm not that fragile. Go on. How are you going to deal with me for the sake of your little sweetheart? Reed Fu, however, seemed to have rediscovered some priceless treasure, holding me tightly in his arms. Skye, Skye, he called my name over and over again. He said, I believe in you. I know it wasn't you. These two sentences brought back the dream I just had. Suddenly, I remembered when I was 16, my mother committed suicide by jumping into the sea, and it was Reed Fu who accompanied me to identify her body. The wind was so strong that day, it nearly knocked me off my feet. It was Reed Fu who supported me step by step through the entire process. When I caused a scene in my dad's office holding the urn, it was Reed Fu who stood behind me as my support. When my dad raised his large hand, Reed Fu rushed forward in an instant to shield me. All right, Skye is my daughter. I can take care of her for a lifetime. Can you? Young Reed Fu raised his head high and declared confidently, I can. My father, furious, laughed bitterly. Then you'll be responsible for her for the rest of your life. When I left the office building, I crouched under the shade of the trees, sobbing uncontrollably. Reed Fu panicked, clumsily wiping the tears from my face. Skye, did I do something wrong? No, he didn't. I'm just sad. I don't have a mom anymore. When Reed Fu dropped me off at my doorstep, he waved at me. Skye, if you want to cry, just call me anytime. I'll be there. He patted his then not so broad shoulders. My shoulders are reliable, you can lean on them. I shook my head and walked in alone. Late at night, when I was quietly sobbing in the empty villa, he silently knocked on the door. Skye, you still have me. When I said I'd take care of you for a lifetime, I meant it. Young and naive, unaware of how easily people change, all I knew was that Reed Fu would always stay by my side. With a wave of my hand, he would come to my side. Skye, I'm here. So later, when Reed Fu fell gravely ill, I tried every possible way to keep him with me. Under the dim yellow light, my hands were always busy with greasy dishes that never seemed to end. When snowstorms covered my head, my hands clutched orders I feared would be late. Only when wielding a pen to draft copy do I remember that I am Skye. Yet later, we became adversaries, each pointing a sharp knife at the other's heart, unwilling to relent until blood was drawn. He was once so good to me, and we were once so good together. The hospital alarm keeps blaring. Suri Jiang is in trouble again. Reed Fu hesitated for a moment before saying to me firmly, Skye, I know it wasn't you. Wait for me. After I handle this, we'll have a proper talk. Watching his retreating figure, I wondered, Reed Fu, what do you want to talk to me about? Start over. My vision is getting increasingly blurry. I think I'm really quite tired. I asked the doctor, who is also my friend, to pass a message to Reed Fu. Just tell him that Skye agrees to the divorce and wants 80% of the shares. The Reed Fu who accompanied Skye at 16 was real. The Reed Fu who protected Skye at 18 was real. The Reed Fu who betrayed Skye at 26 was also real. 31-year-old Skye is willing to leave some dignity for the 18-year-old sincere Reed Fu, but 31-year-old Skye will never forgive 31-year-old Reed Fu. I quietly left Reed Fu's world, like a drop of water merging into the ocean, leaving him no trace of me to find. I've cleared all my accounts, determined to make a clean break with the past. The master at the temple told me, this is not severing worldly ties, but rather escaping. I asked the master, what truly counts as a clean break? The master said, it's when encountering old matters and objects no longer stirs any ripples in your heart. The master's words were too profound, I couldn't understand them. I only wanted to know if my child who died young is doing well. The master sighed softly, with your sincere prayers, the little one will surely know. Content. I left and lit a long life lamp before the Buddha's throne. I have long been alone in this world, waiting only for a century to pass, so I may ask my mother if the seawater stung her, and ask my child if they still resent me. Another winter came, and while praying for my child at the temple, I met old Lady Shin. She had aged a little more than a few years ago. When she saw me, she grabbed my hand in surprise. "Sky, do you know how much Reed and I have missed you?" Meeting an old acquaintance left nothing but awkwardness. I withdrew my hand, pretending she had mistaken me for someone else, but she held on even tighter. "Sky, please see Reed once. He's been searching for you like crazy." Her eyes glistened with moisture. "Consider it your mother begging you." But Reed Fu and I had long become a resentful couple. When I forced Reed Fu to marry me, he would often disappear without a trace at just one phone call from Suri Jiang. At that time, even meeting him once was difficult for me. Our fate had long been worn away through repeated misalignments. I silently withdrew my hand. "You've mistaken me for someone else." With that, I hurriedly walked away. Little did he expect to bump into someone head-on, holding the broken talisman. He asked the master, "Is it really beyond repair?" The master lowered his gaze and replied, "The bond has already run its course." Reed Fu and I sat on opposite sides of the walnut-wood table, as clearly divided as the Chu River and Han border, with a stark line between us. He rambled on about the 2 years since I had been gone. He said he had been looking for me. He said he had completely separated from Suri Jiang. "Sky Yi, I know it wasn't you," I responded with an and said, "You've mentioned that before." At the end, he lightly lifted his eyelids. "Sky Yi, can you forgive me?" I looked into those pitch-black eyes, where I saw Reed Fu from different times. They either smiled, raged, or whispered to me, "Sky Yi, what's wrong? I'm here. Don't be afraid." They are all Reed Fu, those who love me and those who don't. I shook my head silently. "No." Reed Fu's eyes darkened for a moment. "Sky Yi, can I stay by your side? Can we start over?" I looked at him and still shook my head. In my dreams, the 18-year-old Reed Fu who loved me had already told me not to forgive. I stood up and looked at Reed Fu. "Reed Fu, Sky Yi died the day you pushed her down." What flowed down from beneath me was not just blood, but also my love for Reed Fu. They crawl into my veins along with the icy raindrops, turning into millions of ants gnawing at my heart. When the cold machine entered my body, I thought, the Sky Yi who loved Reed Fu and wanted to spend 100 years with Reed Fu had died. She died in Reed Fu's betrayal. She died in Reed Fu's indifference. I enunciated each word clearly. What you killed with your own hands was not just that child, but also Sky Yi. Upon hearing this, Reed Fu lowered his head and shed tears. "But, Sky Yi, I regret it now." Reed Fu made multiple trips between the two capitals. Because his ex-wife lived there, everyone thought they would reconcile sooner or later. After all, their love had been so passionate back then, until one day, they finally realized clearly that Sky Yi would never look back. That day, Suri Jiang followed Reed Fu and found Sky Yi. Reed Fu's submissive devotion to Sky Yi drove her mad with jealousy. Why was it that despite both losing a child, Reed Fu loved Sky Yi so desperately? She couldn't accept it. Amid the three-way argument, the dagger she had intended to stab Sky Yi with was firmly intercepted by Reed Fu. "Reed, I didn't mean to. You know I would never want to hurt you." Suri Jiang covered her mouth in panic, frantically pulling Reed Fu to go to the hospital. Yet Reed Fu stubbornly kept his gaze fixed on me. "Sky, I promise I'll handle this. Please, don't disappear from my world again." Watching Reed Fu bleed profusely, I sighed softly. It seemed the curse I had cast back then was truly coming to pass. I don't want sin on my hands. I fear Buddha won't let me see my child. I called 120 and sent him to the hospital. On the stretcher to the hospital, Reed Fu clutched my hand tightly, afraid I might disappear. It looked just like when he was sick, and I was the one tightly holding his hand. But it's all in the past now. After the successful surgery, Reed Fu ignored all and rushed straight to my place, his face as pale as paper. He stood at the door and asked me hoarsely, "Sky, can we start over?" Through his pupils, I saw myself shaking my head. "Reed Fu, not everything can start over from the beginning." Reed Fu watched as Sky Yi shook her head and despondently lowered her gaze, his wound splitting open from the intense running. Blood slowly seeped through the snow-white bandage, inch by inch. Suddenly, he remembered that year when the rain fell as heavy as beans, and Sky Yi was accidentally pushed to the ground by him. When the crimson blood spread, the look in Sky Yi's eyes was utterly despairing. Her lips trembled as she looked at him. "Reed Fu, save our child." He carried her and ran frantically to the hospital, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He kept telling her it would be all right. It would be all right. watching her pale face as she was wheeled into the operating room, his heart shattered with agony. Only when she was pushed out did he feel his soul return to his body. He wanted to start over with her when she woke up, but to his dismay, she no longer wished to live. He had no choice but to beg his mother to act in a play with him, trying to make Sky live on, just as many years ago, Sky had made him survive. He pretended to be forced by his mother's order to marry her, provoking her with words, "Sky, we won't be happy if we get married." The red fruit peel spiraled in his hand, and Sky's stagnant eyes suddenly rippled with emotion. She recalled the pain of losing her child, and from the depths of her heart, she hated him. Summoning her strength despite her frail body, she said to him, "Reed Fu, do you think I married you to make you happy? Do you think you're worthy?" Reed Fu paused, the fruit knife in his hand, then said solemnly, "Sky, there's no need to punish yourself for me. You still have a bright future ahead of you." Sky looked at him coldly. "Reed Fu, I want money, power, and status." They seemed to have returned to their youth, and he deluded himself, drowning in it. Until the wedding day, Sky said to him, "Reed Fu, you'd better die soon." He saw intense hatred in her eyes. How wonderful. Her eyes finally held him again, not just a lifeless void that had terrified him into sleepless nights. He smiled at her. "All right, Sky, I will definitely die before you." How could Sky not be fragile? When Reed Fu learned that Sky would die young, he could no longer deceive himself. If Sky were truly fine, how could he be startled by the sorrow in Sky's eyes? How could he fear the pillowcase soaked by her midnight tears? He was a despicable fugitive, unable to bear the pain he had inflicted on Sky. He fled their home. At midnight, he was tormented by guilt over his words. "Sky, you don't know how to love at all." How could Sky not understand love? In the depths of winter with thick snow, Sky knelt and prayed step by step to obtain a protective talisman for him, wishing only for his safety. Even at his most destitute and desperate moments, Sky never gave up on him in the slightest. He truly is a scoundrel. Fortunately, Sky hated him. He thought they still had plenty of time, but when he woke from his grand dream, Sky was no longer by his side. Sky discarded the past along with him, leaving not the slightest trace behind. In the very end, even the protective talisman he left for him broke. This was the punishment for his deliberate disregard of those bitter tears. Reed Fu staggered along the road, thinking, he brought it all upon himself.